In this video, we're going to take a look at entry and exit gates in CloudBees CDRO. And one of the main constructs in CloudBees CDRO is the release pipeline. And that's made up of these different stages that all have different tasks. Now, each of the tasks tends to be some sort of actual operation. Like, we're getting Jira tickets, we're running a code quality scan with SonarQube, we're doing a deployment, things like that. Now, what's important is that we're able to define when things move forward. So in this release readiness stage, I'm defining that I want the code coverage to be above 75% and there to be no critical violations from the results from the SonarQube scan. And then I also have this manual approval. In pre-production, we've got some additional testing here. And so I want to make sure that all of the tests are passing and that there's no P1 or P2 issues. And then down at the bottom here, we're creating a change request ticket in ServiceNow, and before it goes into production, so before the deployment or any of these additional tasks, we're actually waiting for that ServiceNow ticket to be approved. So with all of these entry and exit gates, we're able to define on either side of the stage what the criteria is for that next thing to occur. So these entry and exit gates are really a critical element of having your secure release pipeline, where you know that when the next thing happens, that all of the required criteria has actually been met. So let's take a look at how we actually build these. So we'll create a new release and just put it in my default project. And so we've got the stage 1. I'll create just another stage. Let's call it stage 2. So quickly, let's take a look at how you actually define an exit gate or an entry gate. These both operate effectively the same. So we have these rules, and these are defined similar to tasks. In this case, let's say manual approval. And we can see we have these native types. We have a manual approval. We have the ability to call out to a procedure, and we have custom. And that's primarily what we're going to be using in just a moment. You can also see that you can use plugins. So some plugins have the ability to operate as entry and exit gates. And additionally, you can also run really any sort of task. Well, oftentimes you're really not going to want to do that. That's more appropriate for a task. There are circumstances where you want to run something from an entry or exit gate. So when I define this as an approval, you'll see similar to a manual task, I can assign a given user and tell that this is who the assignee is. I can also have it so that multiple people are required. And one of the useful things here is, let's say that you have a target environment that has restricted permissions. So let's say that the admin has permission to deploy to a given environment, but other users don't. Well, we can use the approver's permissions so that after they've signed off, then we can deploy to that environment as part of this release process because they've given the okay. You can put in some set of instructions. And one of the useful elements here is the notifications, where the user will get notified via email. So we have some out-of-the-box notifications here, such as default gate rule notification, and we can see what that looks like with this editor. So we've got this pretty basic setup where we've got the view, approve, all of this, but we can actually edit the HTML. And so you can fully customize this. Let's say you want your own custom branding on there. All you have to do is add the appropriate logos, change colors, change the wording, anything that you want. You can modify in here and save that as a new template. All right, so that's all nice, but one of the really useful things is creating automated gate criteria. And so what this does is, instead of requiring people to manually go in here, you're able to take the results of previous tasks and make some determinations automatically. So really quickly, let's create a task that's going to be called, let's just say, get results. And this is just going to be a simple command step. This is just sort of to mock out the sort of data that we'd create. Typically, you do this from something like in our previous example where we used SonarQube. But in this case, we're just going to run using the ectool command. I'm going to set property, and then I'm going to store this on my job. And I'm just going to call this successful. And we're going to set that to 0. So if you're not familiar, this is a context relative shortcut. So we have a docs page that I'll link down below where you can see all the available shortcuts. But essentially what this is saying is, I want to store this property on the job that's currently running. And so in the context of a release pipeline, this job is going to be the task, get results. So I'm going to save this, and let's go ahead and start the release so we can see what happens. So this should complete basically instantaneously. And if we go to the properties, we can see that we have successful is 0. Very good. So what I can do is go back to the editor, add a new exit gate, and we're just going to say validate result. Select rule type, custom, and here we get this gate condition. And so I'm going to put in this syntax that looks like this. So we're going to do JavaScript. You can see a little example here you can copy from. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call out to, so my stage runtime. And again, this is another one of those context relative shortcuts, which is essentially saying that in the context of this stage one at runtime, we want to take a look at specifically the tasks, and we're going to look at the get results task. And then in that task, I want to look at the job, so that individual run. And then I want to look at the successful property, and we'll see, is it equal to 1? So now I've got this validate result. So if you run this, if you recall, we actually set the successful to 0, so this should fail. And there we go. Gate error. Gate condition is evaluated to false. So that's exactly as we expected. And if we go back in here and we change the, let's actually change the get result. So now this time it's successful, it's a 1. And now we should see this is going to pass. And like that, it's very simple to get working with this. You're able to pull data from any previous tasks or even anything in the system. Again, using these context relative shortcuts can really help. So if you're interested in learning more, I'll link the docs down below. And if you're not using CloudBees CDRO and want to learn more, you can check us out at cloudbees.com.